We're going to start this video by just looking at a restaurant in Corinth, just to give you a little bit of local color and culture. But we'll move on in a minute to some scenery from ancient Corinth. In this piece of the video, you're just going to see us going out on the veranda, sitting out on the Canal of Corinth, which was a project started in 1892 and finished in 1893. But the idea was originally conceived in 67 AD by Emperor Nero. That's a long time for a project to take place and be completed, right? So if you think your local government's slow, consider that the Canal of Corinth was first conceived in 67 and took all the way to 1893 to complete. In this video, we're going to talk about the free exchange of ideas. The idea of free speech has recently made news as the recently re-elected President Donald Trump promised to issue 5 executive orders giving additional protections to lawful speech. As you can believe, it was not without controversy. It was not the first time, of course, that the idea of free speech has been controversial. It will not be the last. Evelyn Beatrice Hall, summarizing Voltaire's belief, said, "I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." Noam Chomsky said, "If we don't believe in freedom of expression for people we despise, then we don't believe in it at all. If you only come to the defense of free speech when it's people you agree with, people that are on your side, agree with you politically, religiously, philosophically, then you really don't believe in free speech. However, if you come to the defense of free speech when people are saying things that you disagree with, things that you may even find offensive, then you really believe in free speech." That's really where the crux of the matter always lies, right? Will we defend free speech when it's speech that we don't agree with? We base the idea of free speech on the premise that the free exchange of ideas is very good for the state of ideas. Competing ideas have a way of strengthening good ideas and weeding out poor ideas. Think of it as being like natural selection. Just as competition is good for the health of a species, so is competition good for the ecosystem of ideas. My family, the Bromleys, have an ancient coat of arms with the motto "Non inferiora secutus," which for you non-Latin speakers means "I will not follow" or "have not followed" inferior ideas. We should relentlessly pursue truth even if it forces us to reconsider some of our ideas. In the 1970s, Brazil's computer industry was the envy of the world, even stealing market share from IBM in the 1980s. The government viewed the industry as so crucial to the economy that it had enacted protectionism measures, prohibiting people in Brazil from using foreign-made computers. The results were actually devastating. The computer industry there stagnated, failing to benefit from technological advances happening in other parts of the world, eventually making Brazilian computers obsolete. We see the same thing in nature. Species that are overprotected never have a chance to adapt and improve. Forests that are overprotected become populated with weak and sickly growth or become susceptible to devastating forest fires. Ideas that are overprotected begin to lose creativity and vitality and slowly become less compelling even to those who hold on to them. Only by ever testing our ideas against competing ideas do our intellectual traditions stay sharp and effective. Christian ideas thrive in an environment of competition. Ancient Corinth was the Wild West of spiritualities and ideas. It was a port city. There were tons of different people there, tons of different spiritualities, intellectual ideas, ethnicities, cultures. Had Christianity been a fragile idea that needed careful protection, it would never have flourished there. And its first public introduction was not friendly to the followers of Jesus. In chapter 18 of the book of Acts, Paul gets into a controversial dispute with his own people, the Jews. And we read that Paul was placed on trial for disturbing the peace. He was brought into the agora, that is, into the marketplace, to the bema, that is, the public hearing space, and was tried by the Roman proconsul Gallio. This was the beginning of Christianity's foothold in Corinth. Christians should not be afraid of intellectual inquiry and pursuit. The life of the mind should be the vocation of some Christians. We need Christians who will contend for Christianity in the public square, drawing from centuries of Christian intellectual tradition. And guess what? We have a wealth of information and people to draw from. Anyone digging into the intellectual tradition of Christianity will find an inexhaustible vein of wealth. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, "For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to those of us who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, the intelligence of the intellect, and the intelligent I will frustrate." Where is the wise person? Where is the teacher of the law? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not know him, God was pleased through the foolishness of what was preached to save those who believe. Jews demand signs, and Greeks look for wisdom. But we preach Christ crucified, stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. But to those whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ is the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than human strength. Brothers and sisters, think of what you were when you were called. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many of you were influential. Not many of you were of noble birth. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. God chose the lowly things of this world and the despised things and the things that are not to nullify the things that are, so that no one may boast before him. It is because of him that you are in Christ Jesus, who has become for us wisdom from God. That is, our righteousness, holiness, and redemption. Therefore, as it is written, let the one who boasts, boast in the Lord.